My name is Allison McCracken. I'm an associate professor of American Studies at DePaul University, and my book is titled Real Men Don't Sing, Crooning in American Culture. And it's published by Duke University Press, which is a wonderful academic press, and they have waited a long time for me to finish this book, which is, at this point, my life's work. So it is available from them and all other outlets, and it is in paperback and fairly affordable, which is great because we really wanted it to be a public kind of crossover book as well as an academic book. So it was written to be very accessible and to be basically as a story, a narrative that can be followed very easily. So what interested me first about the project was I'm writing about crooners and crooning singing from the late 20s and early 30s, and what happens is crooners become extremely popular over the air in the late 1920s, and there are these men, these romantic crooning men who become big stars because the development of the microphone allows their kind of intimate sound to be broadcast across the country, and became something that made women especially respond very strongly to them. And they were really the first pop idols. If you think about something like boy bands, you know, or Justin Bieber or that kind of audience. Crooners really did that and provoked, for the first time in America, that kind of pop idol status and pop idol audience. So as a result, they actually got this huge backlash because they were being seen to represent American masculinity nationally and internationally, and they were seen as being unmanly and too effeminate and too vulnerable and, you know, not masculine enough. So they were attacked by a number of different institutions, the Catholic Church most prominently, but also psychologists and music teachers, and it got to a point, because it was the early years of the Depression, and people in popular culture were worried about the industries, that the industry sort of played along and started to present crooners as kind of ridiculous figures or predatory figures. So this anxiety about masculinity in America, I argue, really, it provoked this, a backlash that actually changed the way in which people heard men's voices. So there were changes in microphones to make men's voices appear, you know, seem lower, and there was a promotion of baritone voices, like Bing Crosby, for example, is the kind of standard voice. There were regulations for voices in movies, where there are now codes that we couldn't have these high-pitched guys singing anymore, and so all of this kind of backlash to this sound. But at the same time, these guys had to be seen as being profitable, right? They needed the money. So what do? So you have these guys singing, but you also devalue them and say, oh, okay, they're singing, but they're kind of ridiculous figures, and men don't like them. Men would never like them, which wasn't true. They were popular with mixed audiences for a long time, and in fact represented a lot of white working class ethnic groups such as Catholics, Italians, and Irish with long traditions. Jewish people had long traditions of this kind of singing by men, right? So, but they were ignored, and they were told you shouldn't like crooners, and there's something only women like, and they're low culture, mass culture, you know, and very much devalued. So this is where you get this kind of template that starts this kind of, if you want to call it a paradigm or a blueprint of, you know, the crooners we're going to make money off them, but we're going to make fun of their audiences and say that they're all screaming teenage girls, and that we shouldn't pay attention to them, and devalue their art and say that what they're doing is just purely commercial, and we're going to have no respect for it, and they are in fact should not be recognized as being role models for masculinity or men, or, you know, we're going to make fun of them as too effeminate and too childlike, and et cetera. So that sort of sets up a paradigm that had wide, you know, ramifications for decades, because if you look at anyone, I mean, we look at the Justin Bieber audience, right, or what it used to be, but any kind of teen idol audience, that's kind of how they get constructed, when in fact, you know, their audience is way beyond teenage girls, and it's certainly a mass audience that includes men as well, and that includes a lot of queer people, and includes people of all ages, and, you know, so, but that gets kind of truncated into this discourse in order to continue these kinds of cultural hierarchies of masculinity, femininity, of class, of taste cultures and quality cultures and commercial cultures that exist and that sort of have to exist in order to perpetuate what I'm talking is these kinds of gender and class hierarchies in America. So that's really what it's about. The award means a lot because I've been working on this project a very, very long time, and I've actually been an SCMS member now for more than 20 years, I believe about 22 years. So this project has been around a long time, and a lot of people have supported it at very early stages. A lot of people who are here have known about it for a really long time. They were supportive of my dissertation. They were supportive of articles that preceded the publication of the book and passed those around, and those were widely taught. And it's really been my academic home. I'm a person who's in American Studies as a discipline, but have been most appreciated and most encouraged in my work by people in Society for Cinema and Media Studies, particularly people in Media Studies and Radio Studies, which really began, cultural studies of radio, began in the late 90s with, in fact, Michelle Hilms, who is also being honored at this award ceremony, was really central to the beginning of radio studies and incredibly supportive of my work from the very beginning. And that has just made such a difference to me, and I'm really pleased that I can be at a ceremony that is also honoring her. And I feel like this is something that is new in some ways for SCMS because it is very music-centered as well as being interdisciplinary in terms of media studies, cultural studies, queer studies, industry studies, and then also music. And I think it's one of the first awards to be given for something that is primarily musical. So I'm really excited to see that sort of broadening in SCMS and to see that kind of recognition.